Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we are diving right into the incredible finale of the Book of Ezra. Now, this isn't just some old story about bricks and mortar. It's really a powerful two-act drama about rebuilding a temple and, maybe even more importantly, rebuilding a people. It's an amazing story of both physical and spiritual restoration. Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to look at the incredible story of how the temple finally got finished against all odds. Then, we'll meet the man at the center of the next phase, Ezra himself, and we'll follow him on a journey that, you'll see, tests his faith to the absolute limit. We'll find out why that faith was so necessary when he confronts a crisis that threatens to tear the whole community apart, leading to this final, really difficult act of repentance. So let's get into Act 1, the temple. After years of opposition, years of delays, the work on God's house is finally about to get done. And the breakthrough? Well, it comes from the most unlikely of places you could imagine, the throne of the Persian Empire. And you have to appreciate the weight of this. This is not just a simple permission slip. King Darius digs up the original order from Cyrus, and then he just doubles down on it. He basically tells his own government officials, leave them alone, get out of the way, and then, get this, he orders them to pay for everything. The construction, the materials, even the daily sacrifices, all of it, right out of the royal treasury. And to top it all off, he issues this severe warning to anyone who even thinks about interfering. I mean, what a total 180 for the builders. So with that kind of royal backing, you bet the temple gets finished. And the celebration is just immense. This number here, 712, that's the total number of animals offered up. We're talking 100 bulls, 200 rams, 400 lambs. And on top of that, they sacrificed 12 goats as a sin offering, one for each of the 12 tribes of Israel. So this wasn't just a big party. It was this incredibly powerful statement of national unity and a total rededication to God. So what's the big lesson from this whole first act? Well, it's a massive reminder of God's sovereignty. You just see how God can work through anyone, even a powerful pagan king, to make his plans happen. The story just goes to show you that human opposition is absolutely no match for God's promises. And that amazing Passover celebration in the brand new temple, that's the proof in the pudding. Their relationship with God was being rebuilt right from the foundations up. Okay, so the temple is built, Act 1 is done, but the story is far from over. In fact, we fast forward several decades. The building is standing, sure, but a building alone doesn't make a nation. The focus now has to shift from the outer temple to the inner heart of the people. And for a job like that, you need a whole new kind of leader. So, enter Ezra, the star of our second act. So who is this guy, Ezra? The Bible calls him a scribe, but you gotta erase any mental image of some quiet guy in a back room just copying texts. No. Think of him more like a constitutional lawyer, a top theologian, and a national teacher all rolled into one. He was a master expert in God's law, and his job wasn't just to preserve it, but to interpret it and apply it to the actual life of the nation. He was the exact leader they needed for this spiritual rebuilding project. And this verse right here, it's basically Ezra's life philosophy in a nutshell. This is his mission statement. And notice the order, because it's so important. First, he prepared his own heart to seek the law. Then he committed to live it out himself, and only then, after all that, did he set out to teach it to others. His authority didn't come from a title. It came from this place of deep, personal devotion. And just like we saw with the temple, we see the hand of a Persian king at work again. King Artaxerxes issues this just incredible decree. He doesn't just let people go with Ezra, he funds the whole mission with royal silver and gold. He grants a full tax exemption to all the temple workers. And then, this is the really stunning part, he gives Ezra, a Jewish scribe, the full power of the Persian state to set up a legal system based entirely on the law of God. I mean, it is an absolutely unprecedented transfer of power. So you see, this is the crucial pivot point in our two-act drama. In Act 1, God provided the means to rebuild the physical temple. Now, in Act 2, he's providing a leader who is completely devoted to his word to rebuild the spiritual temple, the hearts of the people themselves. The whole restoration project is now moving from the outside in. Okay, so armed with this incredible commission, Ezra gathers a group of returning exiles. But before they can even start the long, dangerous journey back to Jerusalem, he comes face to face with a critical test of his leadership and his faith. So here's the choice staring Ezra right in the face.
On one hand, you've got the king's soldiers. That's the logical, practical, common sense solution for a dangerous journey, especially when you're carrying a ton of treasure. On the other hand, you have the unseen hand of God. So which is it going to be? The path of worldly security or the path of radical all-in faith?
And this quote just lays his heart bare. Ezra realized he couldn't very well ask for soldiers because he'd already gone on record with the king, telling him how God protects his people. Asking for an army now? Well, it would make his words seem totally empty. His public testimony demanded private trust. He had to actually live out what he claimed to believe. He had to walk the talk. So what do? They stopped right there by the river Ahava, and they fasted and they prayed. They humbled themselves, and they asked God for a safe journey. And the text makes it crystal clear. The hand of our God was upon us, and he delivered us from the hand of the enemy. God honored their faith, plain and simple. So this whole chapter is really a powerful case study in what real faith actually looks like. It teaches us that faith isn't just some private feeling. It's an active, public trust that sometimes requires us to make choices that seem, a little crazy to the outside world. Ezra models this incredible leadership that leans on prayer and fasting before it leans on worldly power, and the result is just a crystal clear demonstration of God's faithfulness. So Ezra and his caravan, they arrive in Jerusalem, and you can imagine it's a hero's welcome. They deliver the treasure, they offer sacrifices. It's a great moment. But that celebration, it does not last long. Almost immediately, Ezra is hit with a report of a spiritual catastrophe, something so serious it threatens to undo everything they've worked for. So here was the crisis. The people, from the top leaders all the way down, had been intermarrying with the pagan nations around them. And it's really crucial to understand this wasn't about race or ethnicity. It was about theology. You have to remember, it was the worship of foreign gods that led to Israel's exile in the first place. So by merging with these idolatrous cultures, they were totally compromising their unique identity as God's holy seed, and were basically setting themselves on a path right back to the exact spiritual disaster they had just been rescued from. Ezra's reaction is just visceral. He tears his clothes, he pulls hair from his head and his beard, and he just sits down, completely stunned. His grief then explodes into one of the most powerful prayers of confession in the entire Bible. And notice what he says, our iniquities. Even though he's personally innocent, as a true leader, he completely identifies with the sin of his people, and he carries their shame before God. The lesson here is pretty stark. You can have a beautiful, perfectly rebuilt temple, but it means absolutely nothing if the hearts of the people inside aren't holy. Ezra's response just shows that real repentance has to start with a broken heart and a totally honest confession before a holy God. And that brings us to the final and frankly painful chapter. Ezra's public display of grief, it doesn't go unnoticed. A crowd starts to gather, and when they see their leader weeping before God, they begin to weep as well. His personal mourning sparks a nationwide movement of repentance. And then a man named Shechaniah stands up. He doesn't make any excuses. He just owns the sin on behalf of everyone. But he also sees a path forward, a little glimmer of hope. He proposes a solution that is both radical and absolutely heartbreaking. They have to make a new covenant with God. And the cost of that covenant? It's going to be separating from the foreign wives and the children who were pulling their hearts away from God. This would have meant tearing families apart. A truly, truly painful decision. So what happens next isn't some rash, emotional decision. It's an organized, deliberate, and painful process. A national assembly is called, the people publicly agree to the plan, and then a commission is set up to handle each and every case, one by one, over a period of 3 months. This was a costly, difficult, but necessary act of obedience. And that commitment was put on the record. The book doesn't just say, oh, some people sinned. It ends with a long, specific list of the men who had disobeyed, from the highest-ranking priests all the way down to the common people. And naming names like this, it drives home a really crucial point. Repentance isn't just some vague group feeling. It's a matter of individual, personal, and public accountability. And this is where the book of Ezra ends. It's not a neat and tidy happily ever after, but with the messy, painful reality of what it truly takes to turn back to God. The temple was rebuilt with stone and timber, sure, but the nation itself was being rebuilt with costly obedience and renewed covenants. And that leaves us with the final, pretty challenging question to think about. What does genuine reform really require when it demands a deep personal cost?